Hello, welcome to episode 17 of Bottom Up. And today I'm here with Sushant Pradhan. Could you please introduce yourself for the
Hi,
people?
I'm Sushant. I do podcasts and I'm into fitness. That's the simplest way to put it.
simple, simple
Yeah,
but true.
yeah.
Um, how did you get into fitness, guy?
So I was very skinny back in high school. 47 kilos गराउन्डमा थिएँ. We can do Nepali English, right?
Nepali English हो
ल
Nepali
perfect.
English.
So त्यतिखेर 47 kilos चाहिँ high school मा हुँदाखेरि and then I felt like I just wanted to be like the rest of my friends. I'm like normal looking, not into fitness, or I didn't have aspirations to look like a bodybuilder or a fit guy, but I just wanted to look average, maybe gain a couple of kilos. So that's how I joined the gym for the first time, and just got addicted to doing better, doing more, searching for more, and that's how it's been.
Do you remember the first time you entered a gym, who you were with, what it was
Hmm.
like? Because sometimes going to the gym for the first time can be intimidating for people.
Right. So I still remember that it was 2009, and it was my New Year's resolution. So it was me just deciding that I've tried everything else, and nothing is working for me. I tried eating a lot. I tried just sleeping the whole day because that's what I heard. दिनभरि सुत्यो भने मोटो हुन्छ. Didn't work out for me. Tried eating all the junk food. Didn't work out. So finally, I thought like it was time for me to try getting into working out, since I've heard that my dad used to be very skinny as well when he was young, but then he got into fitness. He transformed his body, and he was very much into fitness. And even when I was growing up, I used to watch him do push-ups and running and chin-ups and all those kind of exercises, right, on a daily basis. So he had this routine. So for me, that was like my last resort, and I just searched around for a gym. I come from Birganj, so I searched around for a gym. I found a gym, which was, I think, it has to be government gym or something like that. So that was the first time I just entered. I went in there by myself, talked to the manager or the trainer that was in charge, and just got started from the next day.
Do you think like your dad being into fitness was like a big thing for you?
Oh yeah,
Big.
oh yeah, because uh, a lot of times what happens is you get inspired by people around you, and when their story of struggle matches to yours, because he was skinny as well and I was skinny, and he changed, transformed his life, and I wanted to do the same thing. So that kind of pushed me towards getting into fitness. And we're talking about 2009, when fitness was not a thing. This was the time when only bodybuilders would go to the gym, or if you wanted to beat someone up, right? There is
Exactly.
no such thing as fitness. There is no such thing as women in fitness. It was pure bodybuilding, or having a bigger body just to fight other guys. So yeah, so it really did help me a lot. I mean, it pushed me uh, to an extent, because like back then the gym used to be even more intimidating, even more hardcore guys. Only hardcore gyms existed back then. So yeah, it definitely did help me a lot.
Right now, the meaning of a gym can mean so many different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But back then, it was like the pumping iron days,
Oh yeah,
where
oh
it
yeah,
was just like men and testosterone, like you said, right?
yeah.
Um, how do you now that you've seen the gym, like you've been in the gym industry for a long time, and it's changed so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's changed for the better or for the worse?
It has definitely changed for the better, because again, fitness is something that everybody should have in their life, in any form. It doesn't have to be the gym. It can be yoga, it can be running, walking, jogging, any kind of physical form or physical activity, right? So over the years, it has turned from a bodybuilding aspiration kind of thing to a solution to your health problems or physical problems, or you're fat, you want to lose weight, you're skinny, you want to gain weight. So it has transformed into that, to now, where you don't go to the gym for any specific reason, but just to turn it into a habit or a lifestyle or a discipline, or just getting fit.
Definitely. I feel like mm, if I was in 2009 and I wanted to go to the gym, I feel like I'd be too intimidated to
Oh
go.
yeah, yeah.
I honestly, like, I'll say it flat out, I wouldn't be in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
But I know how much the gym has changed my life. It's giving me the confidence to do this podcast right here.
Mm.
It's giving me, like, the kind of friends that I never thought I would make, right? I think the gym is such a beautiful place, but from the outside, it's definitely getting there, and the gym, the whole facade around the gym is definitely changing. But I feel like it's not. People don't quite understand the true meaning of what it means to go to the gym, right? And then there's this stereotype of hold on, sorry. There's this stereotype of pumping iron. It's still there, right? What do you think is What do you think is the number one reason why people don't go to the gym? Because I think it's because of intimidation. Because when I talk to my friends and I'm like, let's go to the gym, they're always like, I don't know. They sound intimidated, right? What do you think is the reason why what's, why wouldn't people go to the gym?
Well, see, there are a couple of reasons. I mean, like one of them being it's guarded from the inside itself, where the regular gym goers, now it has dramatically reduced over the period of years, but people who have this no pain no gain mentality, or making fitness such a big thing, as if like it's such a huge task to accomplish. It's not. I mean, like, if you are competing or doing it for professional reasons, that's a whole nother story, right?
Yeah.
But for most people, they just want to do an activity and build habits, build discipline, and just get fit along the process. So that part has not been, I mean, like, over the period of years, it has been highlighted way more than before, but it has a long way to go. Now, so once people start understanding fitness as, okay, this is no different than you going to your work, or you committing to doing your work at home or studying, things like that, and it's not such a huge task. Only then will people start, appreciating it or relating to it, and then the intimidation will slowly go away.
Do you think everybody should go to the gym? Like, there's a reason for everyone to go, or do you think there are still certain groups where it's acceptable not to go?
I would say everybody should get into fitness. I wouldn't say the gym specifically, but everybody should get into fitness. Doing some sort of physical activity is very important, especially if you don't have time. Because if you don't have time, that means you're probably busy at your work, you're not getting enough activity, and that's the kind of people who should be getting more activity, right? So everybody should be getting into fitness. I mean, yeah.
And I feel like the ironic part is those are the kind of people that don't usually prioritize their health.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen people who work like intensely, but they go to the gym for that hour because that's their time. But there are a lot of people that, like, especially like uncles sometimes, right? And I'm like, you should also go. It's really good for you, right? I'm all about throughout through going to the gym. I've learned that it's good for everyone, and I'll always motivate everybody to do some sort of physical exercise. And I was just like, oh, uncle, you should go to the gym. It makes you feel better, happier. I even tell my dad, and he's getting into it and he's becoming more consistent. But their number one excuse is, I really would, but I'm too busy. The
Mm-hmm.
time is hai na.
Right.
But what you're saying is, that's why you should go because you're not giving time to yourself.
True.
Yes, the gym is a time to socialize and work hard. But more than that, it's time for yourself. It's time to disconnect from your screens, from the world, right? Because I realize even when I'm resting, I'm not that busy. So when I'm resting or taking a break, it's YouTube, Instagram, games on my phone, right? I think screen time is also a big problem. But I realize that the gym, I can't be watching YouTube and doing push ups. I have to be focusing on one thing. And I think the gym has given not this opportunity, but it's a time where it's truly yourself. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But I also think like there are so many. See, I the problem I see is with the people who are already in the gym. Like I would talk to a lot of people who've been doing it for 10, 12, 15 years, 20 years, and they are very humble about it. They would say that getting into fitness, it's not a huge task. But then you'll see another group of people who will be like, it's either work hard or go home. Don't come to the gym if you're not training hard enough and stuff like that. But those things happen on a gradual basis. Even if you are busy, that doesn't mean like you have to get to the gym 6 days a week. You can just go to the gym twice a week, do 30-minute workouts, and that would do. Not even that, you can start from your home, right? I think the lockdowns showed us that you can probably work out at home and do a significant change in your physique or your health. But what we believe is it's all or nothing. Either you give in 100% of your effort or don't do it, don't try it at all. That's not how it works. It should be do whatever you can, right? And then build on that. Because a lot of people, they would start aggressively and too intense, and that's how they will realize after going to the gym for 2 3 weeks that it doesn't fit their schedule, it doesn't fit their recovery requirements or the intensity or the mental fortitude that they need to have. So the thing is, like, it takes a lot of time. I've been doing this for 15 years and I treat it just like any other routine of my daily life. I just go to the gym 4 days a week and it's just as good enough for me. So of course you can just start from the basics, start with 2 sessions per week, start with 30-minute workouts, start with making just a little bit healthier choices with the diet, and build on that.
It's like brushing your teeth or taking a shower.
I always
'Cause,
give that example,
right?
brushing your teeth.
It's always because
Yeah,
you don't think about brushing your teeth
right.
as a
You just do it,
as a saas baje uthera I have to brush my teeth banera हैन
and
नि?
I'll make it squeaky
Yeah,
clean. It doesn't
exactly.
happen that way.
It's just I got to brush my teeth. That's
Yeah,
part of the day, right?
yeah.
I think another thing that I related to when you were saying was the fact that it's the all or nothing mentality. I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like it doesn't work. When I go in with this all or nothing mentality, I last a week max.
Yeah.
Because it's such a big change to go from 0 to 100. It's crazy. Your body's like, what is happening, right? With anything, if it's like, sometimes I'm like, as a Ramno Marx did on a person, I'm going to study every day for the rest of the year. After a week, I'm back to taking a nap after
Yeah.
school, right?
Yeah.
So, but then with the gym, for example, right? I did not start by going to the gym and deadlifting and bicep curling, right? I started off inspired by a friend and doing push-ups, sit-ups, and dips at home.
Mm-hmm.
Then I bought a barbell. Not a barbell, just those adjustable dumbbells. Started doing bicep curls along with the push-ups, the sit-ups, and the dips. Eventually, one of my friend's parents approached me and said, "You should go to the gym." And that's where I met my first trainer, Akash. And we didn't do deadlifts, like barbell squats, none of that. We were just doing mobility, yoga, some simple core exercises, and body weight, like push ups. And then after that, I slowly met Tony Dai, and we started doing the pumping iron stuff. You know, the deadlifts, the squats, the bench, the dumbbell curls, the machines, right? But reflecting on all of this, if I had started with Tony Dai and been the machines and deadlifts and all this, I don't think I would have lasted.
True.
I gradually built it up, right?
Yeah.
How was your fitness journey? Was it a 0 to 100 thing for you, or was it a very gradual thing?
Quite honestly, it was 0 to 100 for me because, like, it was an intense environment back then. I remember throwing up, in the middle of my first session, and that's how my first session ended because I was doing forced reps on day one. Like, I would lift as much as possible, and then someone would spot me and make me do 5 or 10 more reps on day one. And I remember running to the bathroom just to throw up, and That's how it started for me. But now, but also that happened because back then there was no information. The environment was completely different. It's not the case right now. You can start slow, and you should definitely start slow and build upon habits. It's all about, the problem is like people have unrealistic expectations. They would watch a TikTok or an Instagram or those typical fitness influencer transformation photos and videos, which most of them are on steroids. They've been doing it for 10 plus years, but they would say that that's a 6 month transformation or 3 month transformation and it's all natural. And you just kind of start having this unrealistic expectations of what you can achieve with fitness. And also, you'd push yourself, they shove this ideology down your throat that you should be going all out from day one. And motivation will get you started. But on week 3, on a Tuesday, you would feel like, I don't want to go to the gym today. And then the cycle breaks. The next day, you wouldn't want to go. Thursday, you wouldn't want to go. And then it just turns into something that you tried once.
What made you go back to the gym after that day of throwing up? Because if I threw up on my first day at the gym, I'm not going back.
Right.
I'm going back in my bed and watching Netflix,
Right.
eating chips.
Uh-huh.
What made you go back even though you threw up, you pushed yourself to the point of being sick?
Well, for starters, we didn't have Netflix back then. We didn't have we didn't have the internet. We were using dial-up. But no,
What's
but
dial-up?
you don't know about dial-up internet.
No, I was born in 2008.
Okay, I'll get back to it in a while. So for me, just like I was sick of being too skinny. I mean, like that was the only factor that was driving me, and I knew that I trusted in the process that if I keep on doing this long enough, I would get somewhere. Plus, I'm very heavy on research. I do a lot of research on a lot of things. So back then I was researching on a lot of things about fitness, and I was like, okay, this is what I did wrong. Okay, this is how I should be progressing and stuff like that. And we didn't used to have motivational videos because, like I said, internet was too slow. Dial up. I'll get back to it in a while. But we used to have motivational stories, right? So there used to be forums where people would share stories of full on like 1800 words kind of text, and I would read those, and I was like, okay, I'm pumped up. I cannot wait to wake up at 5 a.m. and get to the gym. Although the gym opens up at 6 a.m., I would be the first one waiting outside the gym for like 15, 20, 30 minutes just for the gym to open up. So I think it's just me doing a bit of my research and then trusting the process and believing that I'll get there somewhere. I'll get there someday, because my goal was to get into the gym for 3 months, gain a little bit of weight, and then like leave this thing. So that was my originally intention. But coming back to the dial-up thing, it used to be so before, how the internet worked was you used to have modem in your desktop CPU,
Okay.
right? So you would connect the telephone wire cable,
The Ethernet, does
kind of like that. So you would connect it there. So and then you'll have like NTC unte त्यतिखेर, and then you would have a username and password through an app or something. You would dial that. That would completely interrupt your phone connection. So while the time you're using the internet, the phone wouldn't be working. And they would be charging you for the dial-up, for the internet connection as well. Plus, the telephone bill would add up as well. So it used to be quite expensive. It used to be very slow. I remember downloading a song by, do you know Slipknot, the band?
I think I've heard of it.
Okay, so the vocalist, the frontman's name is Corey Taylor. So he had this song called Bother, which was his solo project. I remember downloading that song on 40, 50 bytes per second. It took me like 30 minutes just to download one song. So I come from that era. So I mean, like, now come to think of it, I think things like those made me be more patient. Like right now, you want everything right now. If the video is stuck for 5 seconds, people go crazy, right? Everything is like scroll for every 2 seconds. If you're not entertained, you just skip the video. it was not back then. So I think our generation was primed or trained to be patient as well with a lot of things. So that helped me a lot.
I I also wanted to go back on something else you said. We'll
Mm-hmm.
get back to the this dial up and the modern
Right.
generation. But this whole you went from 0 to 100 and it worked for you and it might work for other people as well. I'm not saying it won't. But I just wanted to get your take on this, like the go big or go home kind of thing, or more importantly, um, fitness is a lifestyle. And I think this is partial. It's more complicated than go big or go home because at the end of the day, it is kind of like a lifestyle, but that doesn't mean it's your whole life, right? What's your take on this whole fitness is a lifestyle?
No, 100% on that. I mean, like, you have to build habits so that you don't feel like you're putting effort into it. You just start slowly. It's an investment that's being done on the background, where you're not putting a chunk of your energy into something all at once that it's going to affect other aspects of your life, because everything else is equally important as well. At least for 99% of the population out there who are not trying to make a career into fitness, right? So you have to balance everything, and you should be okay with things things taking a while to add up. It's not about I me working out for like 3 hours, 6 days a week. It's more about me. This is what I'm doing right now. I mean, like, I'm probably training 45 minutes to an hour, only 4 days a week, and that gets my job done. So it's because I am focused on other important things as well. Because if I don't and make fitness my priority, or to a point that it starts affecting other aspects of my life, I won't be able to do it for the longest period of time. And consistency is the name of the game. So any way possible, you have to make sure that you can do it for the longest period of time, and without it affecting other aspects of your life. Only then will you be able to create results.
So fitness is not necessarily a lifestyle, but
It is. No, no, it is a lifestyle.
it is.
It is a lifestyle. So that's why you have to do it on a consistent basis with maybe not 100% intensity.
I felt like it was more like it's like part of a lifestyle. Like
It is.
it's
Yeah.
not it's not fully 100%. It's fitness is your life and that's
No,
it.
no, no,
It's
no, no.
fitness is a part of
Yeah.
a healthy way of living, right?
True, true. It's a part of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not a completely, thing that you would be consumed by.
Mm, And now like you're super into fitness and I think that's how most of what you do now got started, right? But then you started opening gyms across Kathmandu or across Nepal as well?
Just Kathmandu.
Just
Yeah.
Kathmandu, right? What was that like moving from going to the gym and it being a big part of your life to now it being a bigger part of your life because now it's your source of income, it's your source of source and your source of income is a pretty big part of your life, right? So how was that transition from fitness being a hobby and a part of your life to fitness being the main thing in your life?
Mm, okay, this is something, a lot of people need to realize, that once you turn something into your passion into business or profession, it is not going to be as enjoyable, because now you have to commit to doing it, not just when you want to, but you'll have a schedule that you're expected to do it on, even if you on days when you don't want to do it, right? So you have to be okay with that. I am completely against this philosophy where people are like, um, if you don't enjoy doing something, don't do it. I mean, that's a very stupid advice. If you want consistent, because, like, even going to the gym, you don't want to go to the gym every single day, right? But you do it, you commit to a schedule. So same thing with me. When I started doing other gyms, I mean, like, building other branches, I mean, um, there were times where I was frustrated. There were times I didn't want to do that. But then again, that's work. That's to be expected. That's where your discipline comes in handy. and you think about the long run benefits, what are you going to accomplish 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, and work accordingly.
So I definitely see your side of it, that if you have a passion and you turn it into your work, it's not as enjoyable. But does that still mean that it can't be your passion? Because you're still into fitness, you still go to the gym, and although you run a gym, when you go work out, are you now thinking about the business side of things as well? Like, is your mind not as clear when you work out? Or, because I wouldn't know, so I'm wondering.
So, like I said, it has turned into um, a part of my life, just like brushing your teeth. You don't think about brushing your teeth, you just do it anyways, right? So that's how fitness has become for me, where I am, of course, when I'm working out, I'm focused on that set, but once I'm done, maybe in the rest periods or stuff like that, I would be or to think about other stuff, or it has become second nature to me in a way that when I'm working out, I think about a lot of plans, a lot of things, a lot of my schedule. That's my thinking time. So most of the times you'll see me with headphones, I'm listening to podcasts or documentaries, or rarely do I listen to music. So it's another part. Like for example, when you're driving, you can listen to podcasts. That's a really good way to learn something, or listen to an audiobook. You can probably do it without thinking much about driving because you've gotten so accustomed to it. Plus, you can use that time to learn new things. So it's kind of like the same for me when I work out. I mean, working out has become like a second nature to me. So that is the time when I'm consuming more information or planning about things. I would be texting my assistant for, fixing my schedule and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's just something, that has become a thing, a tradition, or a discipline that I do every single day.
And how hard was that transition for you, go from fitness being a passion and the thing you like doing to fitness still being a thing you like to do, but you having to do it on the days you don't want to, right? To think about it in different ways, like in the business side of things or the financial side of things, which is the business. Um, but how was did it feel like you were giving something up or you were making a sacrifice, or did it feel like this is the right thing to do, this is worth giving up some enjoyment, because in the long run it'll just be beneficial to me?
No, it's just a natural process. I mean, like anything that you do in life, you just add on to it, right? And things that you enjoy, you keep on continuing to do that, but on the process, you just become so comfortable with it that you can add in more stuff in your life. So that's how I see fitness. I don't feel like I've given up on anything. It's just like I'm interested in a lot of things. So I added on to it, and I'm continuing all these things. So what I think would be a uh, bad choice would be to add on things too quickly. But let's say you add on to one another hobby in probably 2 years or so, it just goes automatically. So that's how it happened for me with fitness as well.
Just just blends in to
Yeah, it
your
just blends into your
existing
lifestyle.
life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like that whole thing again of going from 0 to 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't if you were doing what you're doing right now overnight, I assume that it would be very hard
Oh
for you,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, from like maybe a puny kid going to the gym, right? To running the gym, running a podcast, and doing all the things you do right now, it would be very hard, right? I think you're right in the sense that when you start becoming accustomed or used to what you do, you can find room for other things you are interested in, right?
True. Plus, you also need to have systems in your life. I mean, regarding anything, you need to have a schedule. You need to have a system that you commit to, and not something that you do just when you feel like it. That's the definition of a hobby, right? So that's why that hobby and profession It's completely two different things. When it's your profession, you do it regardless of how you feel. You just have a fixed schedule. You just run by it. Even when you work out at the gym, you have a routine that you follow. You're doing these things on Sunday, these things on Monday. You have things scheduled because now you're serious about it. If it were just for the enjoyment aspect of it, you would just go to the gym blank and probably be doing bicep curl every single day. A lot of people would do that,
Yeah.
right? You see that a lot of time at the gym.
And then you just check yourself out in the mirror and
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. But then once you start getting accustomed to it, what do? You build a routine.
like I gotta do legs as well. I
Exactly.
gotta do the compound lifts. I gotta
True. Now
warm up.
imagine,
Yeah.
now imagine you were doing it just for the sake of enjoyment. 99% of the population would never hit legs or do deadlifts or any other exercise apart from chest and biceps.
That's so true.
You get what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say?
yeah, yeah.
So anything you want to succeed in life, whether it's building a habit, getting into fitness, building a profession, whatever it is, you need to have a routine. And once you have a routine, I mean, like emotions towards that thing doesn't really matter because regardless of how you feel, you're doing it anyways.
It's like you're brushing your teeth, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I think that's so true in the sense that once you become so used to it, it's like I was having a conversation with my cousins the other day. I don't drive, but they were saying when they drive, right, sometimes their hands just take control because they know the road so well and they're
Mm-hmm.
so used to driving.
Mm-hmm.
They forget where they're going and gargoyle rounds, okay? I know. But my point here is that when you do something for so long, you it becomes second nature, right? And then that's how you started fitting in other things in your life. But then, if you're really serious about it, then it's no longer a hobby, right? You're taking it super seriously. You're you're still enjoying it. It's not like it's all bad and it's no longer fun. It's still fun. You still enjoy it. I think I saw this as well with my working out in the sense that with Akashda it was more fun because we were jumping around, hanging from the bars and stuff.
So you're trying to
Which
tell me that Tony Dai is
no
not
no no
fun?
no no.
Now I'm just putting you on the
Tony
spotlight.
Tony that is also fun, but it's much more serious with him because
Yeah.
we start thinking about competitions I can do. And although I'm not athlete and I'm not saying I'm on that level, right? I realize what you're trying to say here is that when you start taking it more seriously, you have to turn up on the days that you don't want to. There are so many times when I don't have a competition on my mind, right? And I'm like, okay, today I feel a bit sick. My shins are hurting. I'm not gonna go today. Or yesterday's workout was too intense. I'll go on Wednesday. And sometimes that'll end up me not going for the whole week. But when I have a competition on my mind, Toinda will text me and be like, "You come today," and I go no matter how I feel.
Hmm.
No matter if I had a bad day at school,
Mm-hmm.
no matter if I just got out of an exam. There are days when I was training for a competition. Sadly, I got injured like a week before it. But I had gotten out of it the exam, right? And then I'm like, oh, what you do? This whole thing with your friends, right? And then straight to the gym, right? I have a snack packed on the way, and straight to the gym, right? Because I know that I'm gonna compete in this competition. And then that's when I wouldn't say it became a profession as we know it, but by your definition, it was almost like a
Yeah.
profession because I was showing up on the days where I normally wouldn't, right? But when you first started your gym, I assumed that it wasn't the amazing success that it is today, right? It was because a business is not made overnight,
Mm-hmm.
and a business is not the pump. The more money you pump into it, the more money gets pumped out. It doesn't work like that. What was your decision making when you were like, okay, I'm gonna start a gym? Because that's a very big decision to make.
Mm-hmm. So I was very naive back then. I mean, I didn't think about it as a business in a sense that I look at it right now. For me, it was just an enjoyable process, and quite honestly, it was purely out of passion with a little bit of financial expectations. Not much. And that's where I went wrong, because I thought like I'm a good coach. I'm talking about 2012, 2013, back when there were not many coaches, or the coaches used to be very traditional, not very scientific. So I used to be one of those people who was very scientific about current fitness trends and science of it. So I thought like automatically my business would do good, but I had to learn it the hard way that being passionate about one thing and turning it into a business, these are two different things. Running a business requires you to have business knowledge. Running a business requires you to have understanding of finances, economy, marketing, a lot of other things. It's not just about you being a good coach, right? So for the first 7 months, my business failed miserably. Like I've told this story many times, but I remember one day when I paid the rent, I only had probably around 700 or 900 rupees. I'm confused about the numbers in my bank account. So uh, it was quite frustrating. I was like, okay, I'm going to uh, stop this madness, or this thing that I'm trying to turn it into a business. So I thought like I would let it go. And that was the day, I felt like, okay, I only have like 700, 800 rupees in my bank account. I'll just probably go and watch a movie and spend all the money, because in my head, I had been saving up for such a long time. I didn't spend money on literally anything. I used to stay at a hostel in Anamnagar, and I remember not going to the hostel to eat lunch, because that would mean I would have to ride my bike, probably spend money on petrol. So I was very,
That you
yeah,
were that
yeah,
particular
I was
about
very
it.
that particular about where I'm spending my money. So when I decided to go watch a movie, I mean, like, for a lot of people that would just mean a normal thing, but that meant I had given it up. Luckily, the movie that I watched was called Jobs, where Ashton Kutcher um, is playing the role of Steve Jobs. So I had never been an Apple fan. I loved Android, didn't like the iPhone, didn't like iPad, none of that stuff. So, and I thought like Steve Jobs was the main guy behind Apple. I thought he was the one who engineered the whole product line. But I realized that he was the face of the company. He was the person with brand. He was the person with vision. The person with actual skills, or the main engineer, was someone else called Steve Wozniak, right?
Yeah, Steve Wozniak.
Yeah, and I could relate to that. As I am watching that movie, I'm like, oh my god, I'm Steve Wozniak. I'm not Steve Jobs. So in order for my business to succeed, I need Steve Jobs, someone who can help me brand, or create a vision, or I need to be that person who understands marketing and business aspects of it. So I remember coming, it was a Saturday, so I remember after the movie getting back to the gym and staying there till 11 or 12 at night, and trying to learn everything I have to about marketing, about business, about finances. So that was the start, I mean. So again, this is another direction that I went on after learning a lot about fitness. I wanted to learn more about the business aspects of it, and slowly from there on, I started learning about all these things. Then I started making a plan. Then I started, marketing myself. Then I started the YouTube thing. This was back in 2014. I started my YouTube channel, and I felt like, okay, so this thing has a very small market, because fitness was not a huge thing back then. So I need to educate people, create awareness, that in return, like, people would come to my gym, because I would be the first person they would think of when it comes to fitness. So that's how I started with the content thing, and learned more about finances, learned more about budgeting, learned more about planning. And then from a person who was just very passionate about fitness, I turned my attention, my energy more towards learning on how to operate a business. So I built systems and a lot of things like that. So yeah, that's how it pretty much went.
And I feel like that's where your mindset of business and passion are two, or
Mm-hmm.
business or passion and you said passion and what was the word for it? You said passion
Profession.
and profession
Yeah.
are two very different things. And I think that's where you got it from, probably, right? Because back in your younger, what you like to call your naive days, right? You were thinking that ल मैले जे गर्यो हुन्छ हैन. I am a good trainer. If people and people will like me because they'll see that I'm a good trainer and I'm genuine. And although your intent is genuine, and there are multiple businesses out there that have good intentions and have good products, if people don't know about it, no one's gonna buy it. Or if people don't know about it, no one's gonna use it
Mm-hmm.
or invest in it, right? And that's where you realize that being passionate about something is not enough to be successful at it, right? You need to put in the hard work and learn the things that you necessarily won't want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm not mistaken, you opened this gym on the roads that I'm very passionate about it. I want to share it with more people. I'm good at it, so I can help people, right? That was the basis that you started your gym on, right? But you would never intended to learn about the marketing side of it, the business side of it, because you thought if the product is so good, it'll
Yeah.
sell itself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And although the product was good, I feel like nothing's really that good that it just sells itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
People need to know about it. They need to be a catchy. Like, for example, if I'm walking in a shop and there's a good product and a bad product, but the good product is in a plain white box and the bad product is in this flashy big box
Mm-hmm.
with like colors and bold text, I'm gonna buy that one because that one's telling me more and I know what I'm getting, right? Marketing is very important at the end of the day, and that's where this whole mindset of business versus
Yeah. Also back then, entrepreneurship, I mean, like, it wasn't a flashy word. 2013 is probably the first time that I heard the word entrepreneurship. It wasn't cool back then, and I used to think marketing is means scamming people for some reason, because back in the days we used to have these telecommercials, Asian Sky Shop and this and that, where they would sell sauna belt, use this and you'll lose 10 kilos in 4 weeks and stuff like that. So it was all shams. And I felt like marketing means scamming people, and that's not something I would ever do. So I turned away from learning about marketing. Later I realized it's not that. I mean, people are abusing it, and the same thing, like shitty product in a flashy box, that they're using marketing like that. But if you have a good enough product, you should be able to market it, and it just changed my perspective on things.
marketing doesn't necessarily mean that you're scamming people or you're lying
Yeah,
to them.
we know about it right now in 2023, 2024, but back in 2013, especially coming from a background where none of my relatives or no one in my family had ever done business. Nobody comes from a business background. For me, it was hard to understand. Nobody taught me that. Right.
Why? What was your family reaction like when you were like? Because you had told me that you were planning on going abroad with the money you had saved, right?
Yeah.
And in Nepal culture, still today, if your son or daughter or your kid goes abroad, it's seen as this great thing that you can brag about, right? Like,
It used
मेरो
it didn't used to be cool back then.
ए हो
Yeah.
तर हुन्छ नि मेरो
Mhm.
छोरा यहाँ गयो मेरो छोरा पढ्न गयो होइन
Mhm.
um what was your family reaction when you were like, you know what, I don't need to go to some flashy school in, I think it was Germany, right?
Mhm.
You don't need to go to some flashy school. I'm gonna stay here, take all that money and dump it into a business which your family had no experience in.
So I wouldn't say I saved up the money. It was the money allocated for me by my parents so that I could use it in higher studies. The way that a lot of students are going abroad, their parents, fund their study abroad thing for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. So it was that money, and I understood what that means. That means that's one opportunity that I have to make my life, and where I want to invest that money. So it was such a huge decision or heavy decision for me to take. But as for my parents, they were kind of happy and nervous at the same time, because my parents didn't want me to go abroad either. I mean, they wanted me to stay with them. And they had accepted that I was going to go abroad because I had studied BIM, which is kind of like a mix of IT and management. So I wanted to go abroad to do my master's. So they were quite happy, but at the same time, we were really nervous because uh, didn't because we didn't have any experiences in business. But my dad worked in a bank, so he understood finances. So he asked me, "Why don't you come up with a business plan?" And I was like, "Okay, all right." It's not like he just gave me that money. Even to this day, he's like, "Had I not been confident in your presentation, I wouldn't have invested any money to you. I would have straight up asked you to go abroad and study."
It was like pitching to your investors, you
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah. I was pitching to him, so I had calculated every minor details. But then, of course, it didn't work out that way. But he says like he saw the confidence in my eyes every single time he says this story. He's like, the only reason I was convinced was I didn't even look at the numbers. I just saw that you were very confident, and the way he describes me is, ever since I was a kid, I was a very I was a very resilient kid on things. Like, if I say I'll do something, I would do it. Even when I was like 14, 15 years old. And he says that I was very mature for my age. I don't remember any of it though. So he was pretty confident that I would make something out of it. So that's how I got started. Yeah. So a lot of people in his friend circle thought that he was very stupid for giving me the permission to get into fitness, although I had studied IT and it was such a buzzing career back then. Even to this day, it's a very good industry, and I had left all of it, and I was a very good student, and I had left all of it just to start a business, which is actually frowned upon. Fitness, like, what do you do? Are you a gym trainer? Do you work out? I'm like, it's frowned upon, right? So nobody had thought like I would do something like this. So
Yeah, I think you like planning it all out and like to the minute detail, right?
hmm
But then what you learned later was that it didn't work, like you said, right? It didn't work the way it was intended to, and it doesn't work out the way it's planned on paper. Why do you think that this is just me being curious so I know what to expect if I ever do start a business? But for you, why do you think it didn't work out the way you had set it out on paper, even though you felt like you planned every little bit of it?
because I've forgotten the marketing aspect of it. I thought like if you are um, a really good coach, people will come to you without you marketing. I had no idea. I had no plans of marketing written anywhere. So that is something I had completely skipped. So that's the main reason it didn't work out back then.
I think sometimes when you plan something, it doesn't have to be a business. It can be a house or anything. There's always you feel like you've done everything right, but there's always this
Oh yeah.
one detail,
Oh
like
yes.
घर पनि बनाएपछि like my mom was so involved in the way she wanted to build our house, right? But then there are always moments where she's like, oh, we could put this here, or oh, like she's still very happy with it and she'll brag
Yeah.
about it and
Yeah.
say, look, मैले कस्तो राम्रो बनायो होइन. तर there will always be moments where we always feel like, hey, you यस्तो गरेको थियो भने, because you never know until you actually do it. You can think about it for as long as you want, but you'll never know the true error until you actually do it, right?
True. Also, we have been taught to be positive all the time. I hate this fake positivity message that we have. We always think about that every plan that we have will go our way. It doesn't work out that way. Now, when I think about things, I'm focusing more on how do I minimize the downsides of any project that I'm doing. Most times, what happens is you would just assume that it will just take off. It'll just take off because you're taught to think positive about everything. My motto, my philosophy in life has recently changed, where I focus on being positive 70% of the time, but you need that 30% negativity to control the downside. So for me, it's not about enjoying 100% with everything that I do. I'm okay with enjoying it 80%, and the 20% I would focus on controlling the downsides or the negative aspects of it.
You need to definitely have this idea of not everything will go your way for sure, but also something to keep you grounded and to be realistic, right? At the end of the day, if you think that everything is gonna work out the way you plan it to, there always needs to be this the devil's side, as they say, right?
Mm-hmm.
To keep you in check and be like, there is always this possibility. I
Yeah.
think I think it's really good in terms of everything, right? Like one example that I can think of is when our school does firework earthquake drills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they make us sit under the table and they say earthquake, earthquake, right? The whole school has to line up outside, right?
Yeah.
That is not them being negative and saying, "Oh,
True.
we're gonna have an earthquake." Everybody
True.
has to think. They don't drill it in. They're just doing that 30%, as you said, to make sure just in case it's there, right? I think it's always important to think about the downsides, but not to dwell on it, not to overthink,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I feel confidence and being delusion are two different things. Being delusional is like nothing bad is going to happen to you ever. That's being delusional. Being confident is you realizing where things go wrong and then doing it anyways with a plan. That's confident. A lot of people in search for confidence, what they will do is they'll brainwash themselves. They'll be delusional. And what happens is if things go wrong, even though that's a very tiny possibility of things going wrong, the downsides of that is massive. So you have to assume that things might go wrong and then create a plan and then do it anyways. So that's real confidence. Like when I started my business, I wasn't confident. I was delusional because I thought everything will go right. Being confident would mean there's a risk, recognizing there's a risk associated with it, but doing it anyways with a plan, isn't it?
Yeah. Still being confident that the good outweighs the bad,
True.
not the everything is sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? And I think I've experienced this as well, right? Like this whole like sometimes, right? Like the most thing example I can think of is when I'm deadlifting, right? At the start, I always thought, oh, my the amount that I pull will never go down, cause at the start you're hitting that day when you start doing compound lifts, right? You're hitting PRs almost every other day, right? And you're like, oh, it'll. And then it starts plateauing, and you know it will, and you're aware of that. But you think, okay, I've deadlifted, let's say, mine back in the day was 80 kilos, right? I was like, even if I take a rest for a long time, I will still always be able to come back and hit that 80 kilos, because that's my record, right? But then I realized that that's delusion. That's me thinking that nothing else will change and me going on a holiday will not change my strength, right? When it did. And I came back and I was back down to 60 kilos and I was like, no. Like I was upset because I didn't account for all the things that. Because even when I went on my holiday, I was doing push ups here and there. I would go to the local gym sometimes when I was free. But you know how holiday works, right? You're not gonna
Yeah.
think about that much, right? And I think it's always important to think about the negative side, but I also think it's very important not to dwell on it. And for that 30% not to be 60, 70%, right? How do
Mm-hmm.
you keep that in check of saying, yes, I'll think about the negative side, but I won't dwell on it to the point where I lose my confidence?
Well, I've become confident enough in a lot of things because I've done a lot of things. So I know, things work in phases. You're not on a positive stride all the time. And that is fine. You just overcome it. Like, it's the same thing as when you come back from your holidays and you try to do that 80 kilo deadlift and you're able to do only 60. Confidence is you've taken so many holidays that you remember that you probably won't be able to hit that 80, but it's just a matter of 2 or 3 weeks before you can climb back up again. So when you have done a lot of things in different areas, you automatically gain confidence out of your experience, and it's not just brainwashing yourself, right? I see a lot of people in search for confidence or positivity, they would just brainwash themselves. And what happens when you fail? You don't have the rigid mentality, or you don't have the mental capacity to endure that failure. You feel like everything around you has crumbled. You don't know what to do with it. When you have built up enough fortitude to fail and to accept that failure and realize, okay, this is just a part-time thing, it's just a phase that's going to go away in the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. I mean, then you would have the actual confidence that we are talking about.
I think, do you think that you can't truly have confidence if you don't have the experience to back it up?
Yeah, it needs to come from one field or the other. I mean, like, it doesn't have to be to start a business, it doesn't have to be that you need to have prior experience in business, but you need to have experience into something where you have overcome that thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why fitness is also now, I'm taking it into another direction. Fitness is also one thing, one discipline that will give you confidence because you're challenging yourself every single day. You're okay with not hitting PRs and hitting it after 3 months, right? And you're building a habit on a frequent basis. You're giving it a try on a frequent basis that it carries over to other aspects of your life. It's like what they say about making your bed after you wake up, because that's a tiny task that you can accomplish in a minute, but it'll set your day up straight. You'll be like, okay, I've done like one thing properly, let me handle another thing, and I'll do it just as good because I have confidence from this thing. And you just slowly increase the intensity of things that you're
Like
trying to
the
accomplish.
like the snowball effect,
Okay,
have you
yeah,
heard
yeah.
that the snowball
or
effect?
or what or yeah, snowball effect, yeah.
Yeah, like where you start with something small, but
Mm-hmm.
eventually you're able to conquer bigger things because you have that confidence from that small task,
Yeah,
right?
and even if you look at people who come from hardships, they have this mental fortitude which actually gives them this confidence of accomplished things that regular people might not have, because they have endured hardships in life, they have overcome it, and now they feel like they can do anything. And even if that their plan doesn't work, they know that they'll just have to wake up the next day and start it all over again, and eventually they'll reach there.
I think delusion is, from what I'm getting and what I'm learning here, is that confidence is when you are able to be resilient and be like, I know it might not work the first time, but if I keep trying and I keep changing little things to make it better, it has to eventually work, right? But delusion is when you think it's gonna work first time perfectly flawlessly, right? Do you do you think that delusion can harm anybody? Like,
Of course. I mean, like, a lot of people who are into manifestation. This is a whole nother tangent that
yeah,
I'm going. I mean, there are going to be people who will manifest on something, an outcome, and they understand that they have to put in the work for it as well. There are going to be delusional people who will just manifest,
and not put in the work.
and not put in the work. And then what happens when they fail? They cannot bear the trauma of the failure, of their failure. Right? We've seen that numerous times. So it's not just about manifesting or just being delusional, or just it's just plain expectations. That's how I would like to put it. It's just you expecting something, but you having confidence in something means you have recognized the downsides of it. There are the chances of failure. You recognize that you can do it anyways. You recognize that this thing needs work, and that will increase your probabilities of you succeeding.
You can't just manifest, think about it,
No.
and assume that God's gonna serve it to you on
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
silver platter,
True.
and shove it down your throat, right? You
True.
gotta get up, cook the food, and eat it. You
True.
gotta. No one's gonna do it for you. You can. Very simple example, cause I'm hungry, but if I'm gonna sit here thinking about a cheeseburger, it's not gonna fly from the ceiling and drop right here. I have to go either order. I mean, very simple, but order it or cook it or go shopping for all the ingredients, right? And that's a simple example, but that can be scaled up to such bigger things, right? For example, let's take your gym. If you just sat there and thought about the great things about your gym and be like, oh, one day I will be one of the biggest gyms in Nepal with a bunch of franchises, and you just sat there in your bed dreaming all day, we wouldn't be here, would we? We but if you like you did, you sat, you thought, but you also thought about the 30% negative. You you had
That's what happened to me the first time. That's why I failed.
yeah,
I learned my lesson because I was manifesting. I was just thinking about the
really.
upsides. I had never in my life, till that point, thought that this plan might actually fail. So I was delusional up until that point, and life taught me a lesson.
Do you how do you make sure that your confidence isn't tampered with when thinking about the thing that could go wrong? Because what I struggle with is I think about the great things, and with this podcast, I'll be honest, I was a bit delusional as well, and I still think I am, right? Because I just think that I just got to pump out and do what I'm doing, and eventually it has to work, right? I know that there will always be times where I had to change or I had to improve my interviewing skills or my editing skills or all these other things, right? But my my point is that you can't just. I lost my train of thought.
What you're
Eh,
saying is you cannot just assume that things will
Yeah,
go just
yeah.
pick right up.
But then I feel like I always tell people that if I had thought about this podcast for so long and thought about all the things that could go wrong, I probably would have never started it, right?
Hmm.
I did think about the things I would have to do. I didn't just think, oh, I'll record and it'll be great and it'll be. I had to think about where am I gonna find a studio? Where am I gonna edit? How am I gonna edit? What software am I gonna use? All these different things. I did think about it, right? But I was delusional to the point where I didn't think about all the bad things, right? Or all the things that could go wrong. Because sometimes I feel like when I think about the thing that could go wrong, I lose that confidence or that motivation to do it. But it doesn't sound like you do. You still have confidence in yourself. How do you balance out that, yes, these things could go wrong, but it doesn't mean it will? How do you keep yourself in check that way?
Well, that's a filter. That's a filter for you of choosing ideas that you want to pursue. Otherwise, I would be probably doing 100 different things, because I get ideas about a lot of things that I want to do. Then I have questions about those, and then I'm like, okay, let me not do this thing. And if my answer is yes on a lot of things that I could, I know that it's going to fail, and yet if I have confidence in that thing, then I will pursue it. The other way to look at it is, if something is really important to you, that's where you spend your time. Other than that, I tell people not to pursue things that are not very important to them. And if it's important to you, what's the second option? I mean, like, even if you fail, you have to try it.
Mm.
There's no other option. What do you do? What do you want to do? I mean, like, completely leave it? That's not an option. So if it's very important to you, you have that courage to pursue it, even if the chances of failure are higher.
Because you know that if it's important to you, you'll be willing to try, no matter if you know that there is a chance of failing or not succeeding, because it's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll never know if all the failures that you've thought of will come true unless you try it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what we've learned, or what I've learned from you, is that when you think about things and you think about them and you feel like you've thought them back to front and back again, it's not always gonna, when you execute it, it's not gonna be the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you're thinking about these things, and when you're thinking, you should think about the negative thing, but if it's important to you, you'll still have the guts to try it, and that's what confidence is.
Yeah, for example, imagine, think of someone who is chronically ill and who's going to die until unless they do this surgery procedure that has a high rate of failure. You're going to die anyways. The best chances are you taking that chance to get the surgery done, right? You don't have any other option. So when something is that important to you, you would do it anyways. If it's not that important to you, then it was not worth it in the first place.
Exactly. I think with another endeavor that you, I wouldn't say recently, it's been a couple of years now, is your podcast, right? And clearly it was important to you, because although the certain negative thing that you would have thought about, that 30%, you still decided to try it and give it a shot, which was a great thing, right? What was the, how did you come to the decision of, now I have a, because for me, if I had a business in fitness and I had a podcast, like I would be like, why a podcast? Like, especially the fact that you've openly said that you're a very introverted person and you didn't like to talk much. You were a very research based person. Why start a podcast?
Okay, so this thing is related to my nature that I want to be more confident or fluent in presenting my ideas in a way that's more articulated. So the one of the reasons why I started with creating content on YouTube, one reason is to promote fitness, but the other reason was to improve my speaking abilities. You know, a lot of times you have this great idea in your head that sounds very perfect, but when you try to explain it to others, it doesn't sound as convincing. We've all felt that, right? So for me, that was the main reason why I started with content on YouTube back in 2014. Because so when I started YouTube, I would just turn on the camera and turn it off and not edit anything. I would fumble upon a lot of words. I would make mistakes, but that was an effort I had promised to myself that, you know, the only way I would look perfect for the audience is when I've actually improved my speaking skills. So I did that for years. So when it comes to the podcast thing as well, this thing about communication, I've realized that communication is very important in anything that you do, right? You need to talk to people, whatever you want to do in your life. So in order to improve that, I started with the podcasting. Also, I felt like this could be a great way to market my gym again, because I started podcast way before this one. There were not many podcasts around. Gov Pass was there,
Yeah.
Doers was there, and a bunch of few other ones, but it was not very trending. So I started with fitness podcast, just like you. I did like 9 episodes or so in my gym in Maharajganj. It's a different kind of setup. It was in the middle of the gym. We would record on Saturdays or after 8 p.m. when the gym would close. So I started with that, and then I felt like, because I've always consumed a lot of content, informational content, podcasts and stuff like that, audiobooks. So I felt like, why restrict myself to just fitness? Let me explore more. I think that you're going through the same phase where you're
Yeah.
deciding to explore more. And because it's for me, it was my comfort zone. You probably feel comfortable talking about fitness because that's your thing. You understand it, and you can create conversations in that direction. But when you are exploring outside, I mean, it's a whole nother game. It's a different kind of
That
conversation you'll have to
dive,
work
yeah,
towards.
it's diving toward the deep end, which I'm not quite used to yet,
True.
right?
True, but you also kind of recognize, as we were talking earlier, that you need to do that eventually. So that's how I felt. If I want to improve my communication skills, I cannot be talking about things that I'm just confident about. I need to be talking to people from different industry, and I have always been a curious person. Even to this day, I would spend 3 4 hours every single day at the least researching for random stuff like how do you wash your clothes. I mean, I know how I wash my clothes, but I'm still exploring. Is there any other way to wash your clothes that I don't know yet? Is there a
What?
better way?
Yeah, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah. Things like how do you brush your teeth? How do you make a coffee? I would research on things like that, basic things, and I would spend hours on those things. So I had a diverse interest in a lot of fields. So I felt like that's the way to go, and that's how I got started with the whole podcast thing.
Would you say that now that you've started a podcast and that you've done it for like over like a couple of years now, right? Would you say you're more of an extroverted person now, or that you're just able to communicate better? You're still a very
Well,
introverted
I'm a
person.
very private person. I rarely post my personal life. I mean, I used to be a vlogger. That's like completely a different
Extrovert,
side.
yeah.
Yeah, N- not an extrovert, but so there's this thing about if you've met a lot of influencers and creators in real life, they're very shy off camera, or they're most of them are introverted, right? On camera, they have a different personality. So when it comes to me, I'm a very private person now. I have accepted it. Although I used to show every aspect of my life before COVID, back when I was doing vlogs and stuff like that, I don't post much about what I do. So I'm still an introvert. I still love being by myself. I still love being at home. But it's just about, again, it's work at times. At times I don't want to talk to other people. At times I have deep conversations on certain topic where I feel like not speaking to anybody, even at home, right? So it's draining for me. But again, it's just like anything else in life. This philosophy of that's your work. If you want to succeed in something, that has to be your work. There has to be a routine, and you have to commit to that.
Is the Would you say the podcast is turning into more of a work thing now, or it's
At
still a
times,
passion?
no. At times, no. It's still a passion. Like I said, it's 70% passion. But then that 30% of the times, I feel like I need a week off of everything. But I know if I take a week off, uh, I will have a hard time starting those conversations again. So my goal is to do at least one podcast a week. Normally I do two. I'm moving towards doing three from this week. But the way I work is sometimes I would just do 5 podcasts in a week and would have backlogs of these so many
So
episodes, right?
many, yeah.
Yeah, but I make this point of doing at least one podcast for the next couple of weeks so that I don't fall off of that habit of talking to people.
Okay. I think, like we said, right, consistency is key, and personally to speak, right, like I've been struggling with consistency in terms of my podcast. One, it's me, right? I think I have exams, I have schools, and these are like excuses at the end of the day, right? Because if it was important to me, I would find time, but sometimes things don't work out the way you
Sometimes life
planned it.
happens, and that's
Life
okay.
happens, yeah. But I think more importantly, what I struggle with most these days is finding people's time, right? And I
Hmm.
think this is another thing I wanted to get in with you, because now, because of the podcast and because of your gym and vlogs and all these other things you do, you work with a lot of people, right? And we can tell people today that first time, because you're such a busy guy, finding your time to record this podcast or talk to you before the podcast, it was very hard and very difficult, right? And rightfully so. You're a very busy person, which makes your time super valuable. And I think over this podcasting time, where I've had to work with a diverse range of people with different levels of busyness or time management, or not time management but like busyness, or um how free they are from time to time. I realize that no matter who the person is, their time is so valuable, and because sometimes people will say, oh yes, let's talk, but उन्होंने को time ही नहीं देने के, or they're not willing to give their time to me, which is fine. I mean, like, I'm not upset about it. I understand that they may have more important things to do. But I realize also that the people who give me their time, it's so valuable and so precious, and I have to use it wisely, right? I feel like sometimes that your time and people's time can be the most valuable thing, right? What have you found about? Because you have your hand in so many different things now, with your new channel as well, where you talk to people about things you are interested in, right? How important do you think time is these days?
So I'll touch upon a bunch of topics. So the first thing is about the time management thing. Yeah, I've gotten very busy. I was up till 2 a.m. yesterday, just writing the script of a video that I'm doing, that I recorded earlier today, for my other channel. So time has become very busy, and apart from that, like, you being a podcast host and finding guests and their timing, it happens to me all the time, even to this day. um, Even though my channel is recognized by quite a few people, but I still have struggle sometimes scheduling other people who are not interested in coming to my podcast, or they're very busy, right? So that is a process, that is a thing that happens all the time, no matter where you are, no matter how many episodes that you do. It's always going to uh, be a problem, and quite frankly, my biggest challenge is scheduling guests. That's the number one thing that I'm working on most of the times. But you're doing it the right way, because that's how I started. Now, first of all, you're a very good host. I'll tell it to you straight away, because the kind of conversation you're having, because I do it as well. So I look at it from a podcast host's perspective, and you're doing a very good job. And I'm not just saying it just to please you or anything like that, but you're good at conversations and the way you are taking conversation to different tangents. But other than that, I think how you get ahead with this thing is interviewing people that you know, interviewing people around you, and slowly build up from that. Like, for example, I got to know you because of your podcast. Because I know Divi's, I know Tony Dai, they've been on your podcast. So that gives you the credibility for me to recognize that this is going to be a place where me investing my time is going to be worth it and I would enjoy it, right? So that's how you build up. Uh, so when I'm one of the guests, people who know me will recognize that, your network just opens up. And that's how I started as well. I started with people I knew, and then people around them were comfortable coming on my podcast, and then people around them, so it has turned into a place where I do a lot of academic and intellectual conversations. So people in that space have kind of recognized me because of the backlog of works that I've done of so many people, right? And and even to this day, sometimes I come across people who have never listened to one of my podcasts or don't know about me, and that's fine as well. It's just about expanding your network one person at a time. So if I'm here, that means at the least, you'll have one another person or two other people that might be interested. You'll invite two people. From that, it'll turn into four. From that, it'll turn into eight. And it just compounds over time.
I think, yeah, I think that's how I begin to approach guests now,
Yeah,
because I have a back catalog, right?
true.
And although it's not as strong as I hope it to be, it's still relative, right? So, for example, if I was to approach a guest after this, and I know that they've been on your podcast or they know you very well, right? I can be like, look, I interviewed Sushant. Look,
Right.
he's been willing to give me his time,
Yeah,
which means he thinks it's a valuable
true.
way to spend his time, right? So then they'll think, okay, if it's valuable to for Sushant to like sacrifice his precious time, because people know how busy you are. If they truly know you,
Mm-hmm.
then they'll be like, okay, if it's worth his precious time, then it must be worth mine.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying is, eventually, when you expand your network, people are more willing to give up their time.
Yeah, and plus you'll have to be realistic as well. Just like in fitness, you'll probably have to do 50 episodes or 100 episodes to get that momentum flowing, right? Until then, you have to put in the work. It was the same for me. It was the same for anybody who has done anything in life. So the thing is to not get demotivated and derailed from things that are important to you.
And I think this might go against your philosophy, but the way I'm doing it is, right now I'm not making any money off of it. I also haven't invested any money in it. So right now it's all for fun and games, right? It's all, I'm serious about it and I want to take it, and which is why I am also motivated or sort of disciplined about trying to pump out as much as possible, because I know the more I pump out, the more I'm better at interviewing people.
Yeah.
I'm better at this whole scheduling thing. I'm better at editing, marketing, all these things, because they're all part of it, right? And these skills, if this podcast ends tomorrow, these skills are transferable,
Mm-hmm.
right? Communicating, like you said, is it's the number one skill, right? But I'm doing it for fun. But at the end of the day, I know that if I stick to it, and if I maybe not do the same thing, maybe if I change little things, or I do things differently, I change my editing style, I change the way I speak, I change the way I approach guests, right? Eventually, I will see improvement, right? I think this is very corny, but I was seeing, I think Mr. Beast had said this on some podcast, right? And he was like, the number one advice that I would give to content creators that are starting is, I wouldn't say that they're gonna see results in the first 10 or 20 or 30 videos. He said, do 100 videos
Mm-hmm.
and try to. And the key thing he said that really stood out to me was, he said, try to improve one thing every single time. So maybe you start making better thumbnails on the second video, then you start adding better graphics on the third video, and you start slowly tweaking little things. And then on the 100th video, when you start improving these little things and you still don't see results, then there's a problem, and then you
Yeah.
start to talk, right? But
Yeah.
until then, you haven't put in that work to be able to talk to me, basically, right?
Yeah, you just have to put in the work.
I think people, like we said in the social media generation, that I really wanted to come back to you, but I don't think we'll have
No,
enough time.
I'll just add one thing. So the thing about consistency and putting out the work is, like, people will probably say that my podcast took off because I was already known, right? I used to make vlogs, I was active on social media and everything. But my journey didn't start in 2022. It started in 2015 when I was making videos. I was making 3 videos a day every single day. And I would get like 50 views, 75 views, 127 views. And that's all for a year, 2 years. It never crossed 1,000. But I knew that if I keep on doing this, I will eventually improve, and eventually consistency will bring results. So you just have to be consistent with things.
But I 100% agree. It's good to be consistent. But I think the one thing that is really important, and I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm this perfect person that does this. This is something that I need to improve on as well. But you can't be doing the same mistake twice either. You can't just
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing over and over again and expect to see results.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you need to be consistent, but you also need to try and improve every single
Exactly,
time.
that's what I'm saying. Because if you're consistent, you're probably different than when you did your first podcast,
Exactly.
right? So with consistency, improvements come naturally. There's no other way.
Okay.
You wouldn't be doing it the same way. If you're doing the same thing, like if you're doing 100 videos, that consistency will bring improvements in you, right?
Oh.
So consistency brings improvement. It's not like doing it the same. I'm not saying do it the same way. Be consistent about it, and eventually results will come. It's like, handwriting practice when we used to do when we were kids, right? You'd write the same sentence for 100 times, eventually expecting that your handwriting will improve. And it's not just about writing it 100 times. It's about getting better in the process, which happens naturally.
Okay, so that's the thing I didn't get or I don't understand fully is that with consistency, that whole improving thing, it happens naturally. Yes, sometimes you have to be a bit deliberate about it, but with consistency, naturally you just start getting better. I think one example that comes to mind that now that I think about it in this way, right, is that setting this up, right? You saw me today. I had to set it up. Before I would come like 1 hour before the studio. एक घंटा
Yeah.
लाग्थ्यो पुरै setup गर्न हैन. Today what we banged it out in 15 20 minutes,
True.
right?
True.
I mean that's probably because you're like a strong guy, but like still, like that's I didn't change anything. It's not like
Right.
I moved the sofa anywhere else or I put or I have a new recorder. It's the same equipment. I'm just doing it.
And you don't have to think about it. Just
Yeah.
like when you're doing deadlifts, like you said, you're doing deadlifts. There's not there isn't someone every single time to make you improve your form. You just do it, and the repetitions will make you better at it, more efficient at it. So efficiency comes with repetition.
100%. I think that like I said, your time is very precious, and I also had to go home and eat dinner. My family probably called me. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and hopefully on my 100th episode, I'll be much more different and much more better.
And definitely, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.